Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming and giving us this opportunity to basically give you an update with regard to several key issues that are going on in the city now. One with regard to the ongoing recovery effort as we start week 2 in terms of dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. There are also some critical issues that are going on in the city that everyone is aware of. Tomorrow's election day. Give you the status of our schools, and also with the upcoming nor'easter, and in terms of how that will impact the recovery efforts that are going on now with regard to the Hurricane Sandy situation. We have partners who've been working with us throughout who I'd like to just advise everyone who's here with us. We have Cammie Anderson, who's the superintendent of schools. We have Joe Giroux, who is actually the FEMA representative, who's here to work with the city. We have Chris Durkin, who's our county clerk, who will give us an idea of what's going on with the election process for tomorrow. We have Mehdi Mohammedish, who is our director of engineering. We have our OEM coordinator, Keith Isaac. We have Robert Bees from Port Authority, who's been working with us through this process. We have Janet Abraham from our partner at Newark Housing Authority. Our Child and Family Wellbeing Director, Latanya Williamson. Our fire chief, Chief Centeni. It's been a long week. We have our police director, Sam DeMeo, our fire director, Fatin Ziad, representing the municipal council, our North Ward councilman, Anibal Ramos. Mayor.
I just also want to recognize that's here in the audience right now. It's doing a phenomenal job. It's almost, frankly, one of the greater arms of the city of Newark is representing our clergy of all faiths. We have here Pastor Joe Carter and Pastor Dr. David Jefferson. And I just want to say at the outset that not only are they doing a great job, but they now are Pastor Carter's church at 124 Sussex Avenue. 106 Sussex Avenue. I did know that. I was just testing him. 106 Sussex Avenue is the location for all of our drop-offs for volunteers. It's at one point right now that we're asking for non-perishable supplies, foodstuffs, as well as clothing. And I want to thank the two of them for their incredible, frankly, truly incredible leadership. Oh, and we have Deputy Mayor Adam Zipkin behind me as well from Economic Development. We want to move as swiftly as possible. We have a number of very important things to cover, as Julian, our business administrator, Julian Niels, has said. The topics, just so you know, that we want to work through today is obviously this is a very big week for Newark because of 3 major events that are happening, 2 quite good, 1 not so good. Tuesday, tomorrow, is Election Day in the United States of America. We're going to discuss that. Wednesday is the first day for the Newark Public Schools to return. We're going to discuss that. Thursday, we have a nor'easter coming to our city. We want to talk to you specifically about our preparations for that as well. And then I want to cover some of the general topics about the recovery. But with no further ado, we want to move into voting for tomorrow. I want to commend, and I'm sure he will, our county clerk and his team have done an extraordinary job returning the voting process to as much normalcy as can be imagined, exceeding my expectations, frankly. And he's had incredible support and help across the board, not only from his team, but I want to especially commend our council people, our city council people to lead in making sure that polling places were open and that we had alternative sites for the small percentage of places that we can't vote. But I will let the county clerk do that. I bring to the floor Essex County Clerk Chris Durkin.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for all of his hard work. The city council members, Anibal Ramos and Mildred Crump, Raz Baraka, Ron Rice Jr., Donald Payne Jr., Darren Sharif, School Superintendent Cammie Anderson, Police Chief Sam DeMeo, John Centeni, the Fire Chief, everyone from PSE&G, all the public servants who worked so hard over these last 5 days to bring back some normalcy, to actually bring these sites back up to life so that people do not have to be displaced, that they can go to their normal voting sites. There are 108 polling sites in the city of Newark. When the storm hit, there were more than 80% of those sites down. Today, there are 7 that are down that need to be moved. There are no sites down in the North Ward of Newark. There is one site down in the east ward of Newark, Sumu Village, is moving to South Street School. There is one location down in the Central Ward.
Two locations in the central.
No,
West Side Park. West Side Park is a central.
well, technically, you're right, yeah. Well, but it really is, it's a West Ward polling location, but it's located in the Central. So Harriet Tubman in the Central Ward going to Camden Street. Valesburg Branch Library is going to Boylan Street Rec Center. West Side Park Community Center going to South 17th Street School. 3 locations in the South Ward. Burgaw Elementary School going to the Leaguers, 731 Clinton Avenue, along with University High School. Those voters will go to the Leaguers at 731 Clinton Avenue. And Avon Avenue School is going to J.C. White Manor at 516 Bergen. I would just say this before I get on to what we're doing now to work towards notification. Over these last 5 days, I've seen the best of humankind. We've seen over the last 3 days more than 3,000 people come to the Hall of Records to vote by mail, to vote early. And they've come by car and on foot, by bike. They've come in wheelchairs. One young man who ran out of gas and pushed his mother in a wheelchair for 3 miles to our Hall of Records in order to vote. We had people yesterday who were online for 3 hours, and after they waited online for 3 hours and cast their vote, they turned to me and said, "How can I volunteer? How can I help you with this election?" We are open at the Hall of Records till 4:30 today to accept vote-by-mail applications for people to come in. They're cut off. The ballots are cut off at 4:30 today. And then the only way you can vote is, as the pastors are well aware, by email if you're displaced, or by fax, or by going to your polling location and voting on the voting machine, or by provisional ballot. Voting gives us a voice. And everyone has a unique voice, and we are working so hard to give everyone a voice tomorrow. We were going to blast out reverse 911 calls. I think the Honeywell system is what we're using, the school system, to send out calls later on this afternoon notifying all Newark residents that they can vote tomorrow. The polls will be open. We're going to put signage at those 7 locations that are out and have security at those locations directing people where to go. So I thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Again, I want to just thank Chris Durkin. His humility is only outmatched by the extraordinary work of his team and the preparedness to understand that many of our polling places are up and running, and we only have a few sites, one of which is my polling site, which has now been moved to the Leaguers. We will also have people at those 6 polling sites that have been moved, volunteers, signage, so that anyone who does not know or is not able to find out, just go vote. And if it's you have one of the 6 of 108 polling sites that are not, one of the 107 polling sites that are not moved. If you have one of the 6 that are moved, rather, just go to your site. There'll be volunteers and others there. We're going to take some questions afterwards about both the next 2 issues. I want to get to the superintendent as well. She and her team have done an extraordinary job in partnership with PSE&G, fire, police, and others in prepping schools to start up on Wednesday, and I'd like for her to give an update on that progress.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to start again by expressing the fact that Newark Public Schools is a community-based organization, and while we are laserly focused on getting schools up and running for instruction, we're also very connected with our families, so we want all the families to know that we're here for them, and we are coordinating with other services so that in the event there are any other issues beyond school that they need support on, we are there for them, and we want to help support them. I would like to report happily that today our faculty and school-based staff came to work, as did our central office, and I'm happy to note that we have very good attendance, some schools up to 90%. We only had about 350 folks call in sick or take a personal day today. So this shows the incredible dedication of our teachers, our administrators, and our other school-based staff, our clerks, whatnot. We are really up for business. Our team worked closely with the principals over the weekend to make sure we're using this time wisely, doing professional development with our staff, rejiggering our curriculum, but maximizing the time at the schools, also making sure things are working. We're very happy to report we only have about a dozen schools that still have issues, which for those of you who were here Friday is a vast improvement from where we were. Of those dozen, about 4 are still completely without power. Unfortunately, several are polling sites. 4 have partial power, and we're trying to restore the rest. And another 4 have various other issues from boiler and other pieces that we're trying to address as we speak. We are very happy to support the voting effort tomorrow. We're going to assist with the calls to families and with volunteers at the polling sites that need to be moved. We are contingency planning for Wednesday in the event that we still have some schools down. We will have those schools paired up with other schools in the city. We still have excess capacity in Newark Public Schools, so in times like this, that's a good thing because we're able to relocate students to other buildings so that we can stay focused on instruction, which is something we really need to keep a focus on, even in the midst of these difficult times on other issues. We will wait until tomorrow around 3 p.m. to make that decision. We know families are never excited about sending their little ones to schools that are not their own, but we feel we can accommodate, and our teams will be prepared to do so in the event that that is necessary, but we will wait to see if we can resolve those dozen or so issues before making that decision. I want to end on 2 positive notes. We all need a little inspiration these times. One is I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from families about the resources we have on our website. We believe that families can support their students' learnings in times like this and throughout, so there's lots on there about self-paced learning, some technology resources, some writing activities from kindergarten all the way through high school. So thanks to all the families who've stopped me on the street and said that they're using them. That inspires me, and we hope you keep that up even when our lights are all back on. And finally, we have been working with 2 organizations, DonorsChoose.org and ModestNeeds.org, to launch a support campaign for our educators and our part-time staff and any families in Newark. Donors Choose focuses on resources for teachers, and Modest Needs focuses on individuals who might need a little bit of money to get through times like this for rent or a hotel room or gas or whatnot. The mayor and I are working closely on this, and he'll be, I'm sure, tweeting about it in the next 2 minutes. So we'll get the word out, but we're happy to have a mechanism that allows for a little bit of support for our educators and our staff and our families in this time of need. So thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you. Just 2 quick follow-up points. One to Clerk Durkin. There is a text number that people can use, which is 877-877. Put in your address, and I've heard it's like within almost instantaneously they'll tell you where your polling spot. So that's one. And then the other, just to let you know the kind of coordination going on with our school and our city. Tomorrow, Wednesday, you'll see an uptick in city resources and sort of strategic police assets and some other city assets at every single school. So for those people who are worried about safety, which falls on the city's responsibility, you will not only see your crossing guards and others, but parents will see a significant police presence at pretty much all of our schools on Wednesday as they go back to school. What I'd like to do now is make just some very, very quick announcements to reinforce some issues that the city and residents should be concerned about. The first, as I mentioned before, is we're expecting a weather event on Thursday. The storm should come in. It's a nor'easter, which will bring cold, wind, and rain to the city of Newark. We're expecting winds ranging from 35 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. That raises serious concerns for the city because we've already had a significant amount of storm damage that has loosened trees, facades, and other things. So while 35-mile-per-hour winds in general are not usually a cause for concern, we are going on back to a state of heightened alert to make sure that during that day, a storm hitting during rush hour, as people are going to school and to work, that we're taking every precaution to make sure our residents are secure. And so some of those precautionary things we're doing are happening as we speak and have begun happening earlier this week. One of those things is just making sure that our tree teams are not only focusing on restoring power, not only focusing on getting city trees off of lines, off of homes, not only sure we're clearing streets, but now our tree teams, well over a dozen teams out there working all across the city, are also focused on taking preventative measures on as many trees as we possibly can. As many people notice in their neighborhoods, there are trees leaning and the like. We're going to do what we can in partnership with PSE&G to try to address as many of those as possible. We will not address them all. I want to be frank. We will not address them all. There will be tree damage potentially from the storm, but we are going to do everything we can with every tree cutting asset we can possible to prevent that from happening. In addition to that, our police and our fire, which have now relaxed a little bit in terms of the amount of officers we've had. We've kept them on heightened schedules for over a week. We want to give them a day or two of rest. Coming back to Thursday, we're going to shift back to 12-hour shifts for our police department, increase our police presence, increase our fire presence as well, to make sure that we can react with greatest of speed and greatest of resource should something happen. I am asking residents, whether PSNG or not is or not, I'm asking residents to anticipate perhaps again interruptions in power as trees fall and other lines which are weakened or poles that are weakened. We could potentially see power outages again in our city. I want people to think now about preparing for that. If you've had power restored, don't go back to normalcy. Think to yourself, if my power is cut again on Thursday or Friday, what should I be doing now today to better prepare for that eventuality? So think about these next couple days before the nor'easter comes to potentially do things that will prepare you and your family for perhaps being without power for a number of hours or possibly another day, depending on the kind of storm damage. We want to be over-prepared for this weather event. We want to be over-cautious on this weather event. It is not as serious as a hurricane. It is not as serious as past storms that we've had, winter storms that we've had, but we are taking it very seriously. As soon as we hear about wind getting up to 40, 45 miles per hour in a time that our city has already been weakened, trees have been weakened, facades have been weakened, we want to take that very, very seriously. I want to make another couple points that are very important. One I said at the top of the press conference, but there are a lot of people still struggling in Newark. There are a lot of people still suffering without power. We estimate those numbers at this point very roughly to be about 55,000 people within the city that have now gone about a week without power. That is a very, very serious reality that we're still struggling with. It remains right at the top of our priority list to focus on doing everything possible in cooperation with PSE&G to get those folks' power restored. I want to ask for help. I want to ask for people who are now able to do what they can to help us to sustain support for those people who are struggling without power. And so if you have the opportunity to make donations of time or resources, as I said before at the top, our clergy have gotten a great point for you to drop off food, non-perishable food. We've had people bring in their home-cooked meals and so on and so forth. Non-perishable food, clothing, blankets are at a premium, even flashlights. Please bring them to 103. Just testing you, Pastor. I want to make sure you haven't forgotten that. 106 Sussex Avenue, New Hope Baptist Church, 106 Sussex Avenue. And for anybody else who wants to do any kind of in-kind donation, financial donation or volunteer work, please call 973-733-4311. I want to let folks know that the PSE&G has done what they told me they would do. They've increased the number of teams working on the ground in Newark quite significantly. They've brought in teams from out of state. These teams are now working all throughout our city. But remember, the demands on PSE&G are not just in the city of Newark. They're all throughout Essex County and even farther. And we still have a long road to go until we have complete restoration of power. And so what I'm asking, the help I'm asking for is understanding that it could still be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 4 without power. I'm asking people in neighborhoods all across our city, and I was driving around talking to people last night. Their block is on, their neighbors' blocks are not, for us to continue to be that city of compassion and concern. We now have an operation of food delivery, supply delivery, blanket delivery that's pretty impressive. Our team has done an extraordinary job in partnership with clergy, council, community activists to get resources out. And so what I want to ask everyone to do is, if you know someone in your neighborhood, if you know someone who's struggling, if you know someone who's having a hard time, you have phone service, you have power, don't just sit there enjoying your warmth, your heat, and your light. Find a way to help other people in this city by calling and bringing our attention to those people in need. We are literally delivering thousands of meals now every single day. I was teasing my team that they're getting better than Domino's. In less than 30 minutes, we seem to be able to get meals and foodstuffs out. My fear is, as mayor of this city, my fear is that there are many people who need help but are not getting it. So please, call our non-emergency hotline, 973-733-4311, should you know of someone that needs help. It is better to be overcautious. I've shown up to do deliveries for people that told me they needed help, and the people already left to live with their neighbors or stay with friends. Please be overcautious, which brings me to a few other points. One is the safety and security of yourself and residents. Remember, power lines are still dangerous. Just because they've been sitting in your neighborhood dormant for a long time, as places are powered up, as circuits get restored, those power lines can become live right away. Stay away from power lines. Number 2, flooded basements. Very simply, don't enter them. Don't enter them. It is an incredible hazard. Number 3, if you smell gas, there's one thing you should do. Not make commentary about it, not call our non-emergency hotline. Smelling gas is an emergency. We had a massive gas explosion in the North Ward, a massive gas explosion. Very lucky that we did not have loss of life. If you smell gas, pilot lights have been out, ovens have gone out, call 911. You call 911. I would rather have my teams responding to problems that don't exist than not being told about them and have more gas explosions in our city. Other things to be concerned about, medical conditions. There are many people that have been without their medication. There are many people that have medical conditions that can accelerate into an emergency very quickly. We have incredible EMT teams that are already going out doing proactive checks, going to check in on people with oxygen tanks and the like. Call for help. If you have a medical condition that could accelerate into an emergency, be proactive, call 911. Again, I want my city to err on the side of caution and concern by using that 911 number on medical conditions, smelling gas, and the like. Carbon monoxide. I get very upset about this because this is entirely preventable, and we've had too many carbon monoxide calls. And so if you are using your stove to heat your homes, you are endangering your family. If you are using your stoves to heat your homes and you have children, you are endangering the long-term respiratory health of your children. Do not use your stoves to heat your homes. And please do not use other methods. We have seen incredibly dangerous things being done by folks who've used open flames in their own homes. You are creating a toxic environment, and our fire department and EMTs have had to respond to dozens of calls for carbon monoxide poisoning, and we've had 2 fatalities already. So I cannot emphasize enough, this is a time for us to use precautions. Flooded basements, gas leaks, power lines, and carbon monoxide are some of the top dangers to this community, and we need to be aware of them. Our thoughts and prayers are with one PSE&G worker who's already been severely electrocuted that is in a local Essex County hospital. This is dangerous stuff out there, and we need to take it very seriously. And the last thing I will say, even though our engineering team under Mehdi Mohammadish and Jack Natta has done a tremendous job in restoring signals all across the city, there's still many county roads and others that do not have signals. Some stop signs might be down. The last big danger I want to warn our residents about is when you get in your car and drive. If you're commuting to work like it's a regular day, you're endangering yourself and other people. I was on South Orange Avenue, a very bad car accident last night. This is the time in a state of emergency to drive with extreme caution. And the law of the land is if you come to a traffic light that is out, the law of the land is that you stop fully at that traffic light. We are still seeing too many motor vehicle accidents, and that's unacceptable. Everybody should be driving with extreme caution, and by the way, compassion. Somebody cuts you off, let them cut you off. Slow down, look out for yourself, and look out for pedestrians, especially now that we have children going back to school on Wednesday. It is unacceptable to me for us to have any motor vehicle accidents involving pedestrians, and they're entirely preventable. Next, I want to go to an issue that a lot of folks are starting to bring up, which is FEMA, and we're very happy to have an embedded person from FEMA with us. Residents, the best thing I can tell you right now, and the most important thing you need to do, no matter what your circumstances, is begin to call FEMA and register with FEMA. We're going to have a lot of information out there, but really there's one number that you need to know to register with FEMA, and we're asking everybody to do that. It's a simple number. We're going to push it out on Channel 78 here in the city, social media, but that's 1-800-621-3362. 1-800-621-3362. They will walk you through the entire FEMA process, and we want people to start registering now and making sure that FEMA knows who you are. When they give you a FEMA digit, a 9-digit FEMA registration number, write that number down someplace where you can save it and secure it. And that's the one thing I want you. When you get that call, when you make that call, they're going to give you a 9-digit FEMA registration number, and I want you to make sure that you secure that and write it down. The other thing that FEMA is going to be doing for us is we're going to be opening as soon as possible FEMA centers here in the city of Newark, and we're going to try to get mobile centers. We're going to try to get some other centers opened up in different wards. So there will be a physical location that Newark residents should feel confident they can go to. But in the short time, they should go to the 1-800 number that I've given out, 1-800-621-3362. I also want to let folks know that there's a lot of harshness on PSE&G right now. There's a lot of folks that feel like they've been forgotten about, that feel like that their neighbors have power on both sides. Why doesn't my street? I assure you, if there's any beating up to do on PSE&G, I would be the first person to do it. I assure you that they're working through a very difficult situation all over our city, but you can still be reaching out to our 4311 line. But what I would prefer you to do is to reach out to PSE&G, let them know. Their operators are standing by and ready. They're logging everything, and they're working through it in a way. I am not an electrical engineer, but they're working through it in a rational way to address your problem. So please know this number as well for PSE&G, 1-800-436-7734, 1-800-436-7734, and there'll be time enough to do after-action analysis of everybody's behavior in this. Right now, have some compassion for your PSE&G workers. As we know, our prayers are with the one that was severely injured and lies in an Essex County hospital. But many of these men and women, their families themselves don't have power, and they've been out here working long shifts, working around the clock. Have some compassion. They're not forgetting about people. They're not working in other cities and not enough in ours. We're seeing a pretty tremendous amount of people in our city working to work through the power. I want to conclude and open up for questions. Again, just with that one sentiment that Chris Durkin expressed already. This is a very tough time for our city. This is an incredibly tough time for the state of New Jersey. But the wonderful thing that I'm beginning to see more and more as we go through these weather events that become more rapid in succession, these 100-year storms that seem to come, not being able to tell a calendar, and seem to want to come every year to our city. When our city is facing the worst of circumstances, this is the time that we're seeing the best of the spirit of our city. It's amazing to me the amount of compassion, activism, volunteerism, service that's being rendered out there. And I want to ask people for that spirit to continue. There's a lot of frustration as people now enter a week without power, a lot of frustration. And that's why it's calling upon that spirit of our city, the spirit of strength and resiliency, but most importantly, service to one another. That's what we are about as a city, and that's what the expectation we must have of each other, that it continues. I'd now like to open up questions on any subjects we covered as much as possible. Mr. Cruz.
Mayor, with all that you all are dealing with and the residents of this city, what's the incentive or the motivation or the rationalization for people going out to vote tomorrow?
Well, look, this is an election, and remember, this is not just a presidential election. There are a lot of other issues that are very important, including a very important ballot question. The rationale is that you deal with the crisis that you have at hand, but you always keep an eye towards the future and the importance of us preparing for future crises. And without being partisan, these elected officials have very different views that we're voting on and very different philosophies of government. And so it's not the time to complain about elected officials after elections if you didn't vote or participate. And so I want people to know it's very important that they engage in this election. I'm very understanding that people who've been without power 6 and 7 days. But I was up on Montrose Street last night with one of our streets that is in a brutal condition, still not passable. You still can't drive down their street. I asked CNN to come out and put their cameras on the people to show the crushed cars, the trees leaning against houses. And here was a street that brought together their community. They had an outdoor barbecue. I want to emphasize outdoor barbecue, where they had food, and heck, better food. I went up there and almost wanted to eat myself because they had salmon and everything. They brought together their whole neighborhood in a spirit of community. They brought food out that they had before it went bad, and they were cooking it. And I had in front of the CNN cameras, I said, are people out here going to go vote? And there was an amazing, rousing chorus of yes, they will. Because they understand that this election will have implications. Elections have profound implications on our cities and our communities. And in this case, Newark is a college town. Newark has Rutgers, Seton Hall, NJIT. We're one of the top 5 college towns in this region, and there's a very important bond initiative on for strategic investment in capital investments in our universities. So to the point that you can get your voice out and be heard, I am encouraging you to vote. A lot is being done under Chris Durkin's leadership. A lot is being done to ease the process, to facilitate the process, to normalize the process. And many people without heat, if you go to the polling station, it's actually going to be warm there. And I think there might be a lot of other information and supplies there to try to support people going through very difficult times. So please come out and vote. Yes.
Yeah, I understand that the Covenant House is housing children from Atlantic City. Can you tell us about that? Or?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Covenant House. On my LinkedIn page, I made a specific appeal for Covenant House. Covenant House has always been a great service for a lot of the kids, for homeless teens in our city. They do an extraordinary job, not just in housing people, but they have a lot of programs to empower folks. And so in crises like this, teenagers who are homeless, who really have no place to go, can be very vulnerable. And so Covenant House is doing an extraordinary job with their network in taking kids from battered areas where there's not only no homes for them, but really no homes for many other people as well. And our Covenant House facility here is doing an incredible job. So I've made a personal appeal on my LinkedIn page. It's a very, very good nonprofit in the city, one that I believe in a lot. One of the leaders, Kevin Ryan, is an extraordinary man. I even wrote the foreword to his book about homeless youth, and I'm grateful for you giving me this chance to talk about that. We're going in the back. I'm going to follow the microphone, so whoever has the microphone has the power.
Slightly powerful, I'm not going to lie. Let's talk about these 7 polling sites, if we may. Can you tell me a little bit about why they aren't open? Are any of them being used as a shelter per se? And also the people who may not be living in Newark right now, don't have power themselves, are living with family somewhere else. How can they get their vote in if they can't get to the, town hall today, the clerk's office today by 4:30?
Yeah, the first question is easy, but I'm going to let the clerk answer both.
Okay. Well, I would first begin with the other question about why vote tomorrow. We've gone through a terrific disaster, but we should vote because voting is the great equalizer in America. Our vote counts the same as our president's vote and Governor Romney's vote. So that's why we should vote. It brings us together. It makes us all Americans. As far as voting goes, you have until 4:30 today to request a vote-by-mail ballot at the office at the Hall of Records. After that, you can go to your local polling site, and like we mentioned, everyone will be able to vote on the machine if they are a registered voter of Essex County. There will be a machine in your close proximity for you to vote on a machine. If you are not, if you go to the wrong machine, or if you are a displaced voter from Ocean County, you can vote in Essex County at any polling site on a provisional ballot, and we will forward that provisional ballot to your county. So that's very important. Also, you can vote by email and fax. So we are accepting emails by the hundreds right now. They're just blowing up our emails. We're actually overloaded on our emails and having to delete emails in order to make room for those emails. The faxes are coming in. The one interesting thing about if you want to vote by email or fax, you are only receiving the federal ballot. You are not able to vote for local candidates. So for county candidates or your local candidates, that is not on the ballot. So if you can't get back to New Jersey or you can't get to your polling place, you vote on a federal ballot.
Closed.
Power. The 7 locations, it's power.
All right. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of, there were 2 quick portions to this. One, in terms of the power restoration, has P&G outlined a plan to you, whether they're going to go specifically to certain wards first and whatnot?
Yeah, I just, there's so much misinformation out there about that. So there's no ward prioritizations whatsoever going on. We have field teams out there. The only prioritization we are instructing PSE&G, which falls within their priorities, is first of all, there's a number of things that have already gone through: hospitals, first responders, those critical populations. And then the next thing really is multi-unit senior high-rises. We have dense populations of seniors who are particularly vulnerable, especially if elevators don't work. Beyond that, please understand, there's none of this one ward over another. I've gotten tweets where people say, you've forgotten about the North Ward, East Ward's always last, South Ward's always forgotten about. I've heard it equally from just about every ward that's out there. So understand that that's not the way it works. You prioritize, first of all, getting poles, dangerous conditions, but remember, there was a major switching station in Newark that was out, of getting those back up, getting the substations back up. After the substations, there's these circuits that flow into all over our city. Lots of those are prioritized, getting them up. And meanwhile, lots of street teams are working in every single ward of our city. So that's very frustrating to me often, is how people perceive, just because they haven't seen it in a section of the city, they think that it's a whole ward not being prioritized. And we know for a fact that they're working in every ward of the city.
Okay. And the other question was, when places where there are power, is there steps being done to ramp up the delivery of gasoline to certain stations?
So, the governor's call this morning talked a lot about that. We're fortunate now, more and more of our gas stations in the city of Newark are coming up and coming online. This is a very frustrating reality, but as my police director reported to me this morning, lines are starting to dwindle in size here in Newark as more and more of these gas stations come online. We're hoping that means that by the end of the week and into the weekend, we won't see as much of lines there. We're doing everything we can. PSE&G understands that getting gas stations back up is a priority. All right. Yes.
Yes, just with regards to the shelters, what's the general picture right now? What's the capacity? And a related question, since some of the shelters are in schools, does that present any kind of difficulty for when school reopens on Wednesday?
So we don't actually have any of our shelters, overnight shelters, in any schools. Some of our schools are set up as feeding stations, and they're preparing lots of meals. We're really grateful for the school system for doing that. But there will be no interruption of service to our kids at all. So these are not, when it comes to sheltering people, these are not overlapping resources that we're providing. So our central shelter at JFK is still doing well. There's still dozens and dozens of people staying there, and more even coming to eat. We've got some new shelters coming online. The Urban League is doing one. Central Assembly of God is doing one. So we're now seeing a lot of people from our clergy network step up to support even more of our shelter work. So we're very grateful for more and more people stepping up to try to provide resources. But remember, there's no conflict whatsoever. Nobody's being housed in school buildings. Those are focused right now on getting up and ready for voting tomorrow and school on Wednesday. Yes, in
Just,
the
just
way
a
back.
follow-up question about the outreach. The phone calls, are they going out to all voters or just voters with moved polling places? And then secondly, are community groups involved in extra outreach to households without power, transportation assistance, that sort of thing?
Right. So there's a whole communications plan that a lot of us have been working on for Newark, but frankly for all of Essex County. So there will be robocalls going out, not just to move polling places, but to let everybody know that voting is going on as usual. We're dealing with, the Channel 78 radio. It's one of the reasons why we're having this press conference. Social media has become an extremely valuable tool. So you'll find it on the Facebook page of people like our Vice President, Anibal Ramos, and it's moving around a lot. So we're doing every means possible. And some community groups, yes, are going out to areas where there's no power to let people know about voting. There will be some volunteers and activists that are out there letting people know the importance of coming to vote on Election Day. All right? Do we have one more question at all? Anybody with a microphone? All right. I want to thank everybody again. Remember, our strength and power during the state of crisis is our ability to come together and work together as a community, and I thank everybody for that spirit. Thank you very much.